move through the process, I guess.
So these there was two bidders, right?
I guess I just looked at the low and yeah, two bidders on this one.
Did the DOT approve this bid? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's led through the DOT, then they leave it up to the board of supervisors to award and approve the bid, and they concur on the bid later, so we'll do the award, then the contract to come back for approval.
Okay, did we have this Gus Engineering? I don't recall having them before. Where are they from?
They're out of, Casey, I think Adair, or Casey, one of those, Casey, I think.
Okay.
So they're kind of this side of the state. They've done culverts for us in the past.
Did they have?
Been around for a long time.
Okay. What was the amount on that?
It's $907,604.08.
Okay. Any other discussion?
When will they start, John?
Probably late spring or early spring.
Okay.
After the contract's done, it's usually a month there, getting materials procured and all that good stuff, so
All right.
probably March.
So will that, road be closed then?
Yes, it will.
Okay, so when will we send our information out to those, Minden and those folks out
When
there?
Yeah, we'll let them know it's coming, but we won't know the specifics probably for at least a month yet,
Okay.
on when they're gonna be there, so.
And then does that affect bus routes or anything like that?
Yeah, that's kind of why we timed the L66 section to be done this year, then this to go, so they don't overlap each other's.
How long will it be closed?
It'll probably be closed all summer and reopen early fall or late summer.
And then
There's 125 working days on it, so.
Then the workaround for that is gravel.
Yeah, we'll detour them on L66, the new section. But yeah, people still use the gravel.
Yeah, we'll find out more.
John, do you automatically notify Doug Reed, so we notify the EMS people out there?
Yeah, we do that notification all at the same time.
Any other questions?
I think I'm good with it.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Hearing none, motion passes. Next up, Jana Limerick, Director of Human Resources, discussion and or decision on the amending leave policy during COVID-19 emergency.
Morning.
Morning.
So the Families First Coronavirus Response Leave Act expired December 31st. And that's the one where it gave 80 hours to employees, one batch of 80 hours to cover if they're sick, if they needed to care for someone else, if there are childcare reasons. That expired on the 31st. We can continue that if we want to. It's just up to us as an organization. Private industry gets tax breaks for allowing that. So there are some private industry that are continuing to extend it, but we do not get any reimbursement or any tax breaks for that. So I just wanted to confirm with the board if they had any thoughts on if they wanted to extend that, and or taking a look at, is there anything different that you wanted to do with the sick policy? I mean, we provide a very healthy vacation balance and sick balance, but when I think about if an employee has childcare issues, their child can't go to school, maybe the child isn't sick, but they can't go to school because of something COVID related, technically the employee can't use their sick time, but they're only to use their vacation time for that. So again, I just want, if the board wanted to be a little more lenient with the sick policy to allow that for daycare issues, just some ideas if the board wants to do anything different, or just allow it to expire and then use our leave balances as is.
I would think we'd be a little more lenient on the sick policy so that I don't think the county can afford an 80-hour deal like we had before. No?
How, do we have any childcare issues out there that you're aware of, Jenna?
Not that I'm aware of today.
So if there were the employees to use that before December 31st of 2020, we would have documentation of that?
Yes.
And we didn't have anybody do it then?
Oh, we did. Yes.
Oh, we
we-
did have people do it.
Yep, so that started in March and went till December 31st. Yeah, we probably had 150 employees utilize FFCRA leave throughout this past year.
So you not think this is gonna get renewed?
It has not. I mean, and again, we're still
You will.
waiting
Session
to,
starts next week, right?
Biden has indicated that he, and this was probably October, I watched a webinar, and they had thought that Biden would extend it, but I haven't heard anything about it since. So yeah, there is still a chance that it will get extended.
So did they use those, whatever that number was, 126 or what? Did they use all 80 then?
Well, it depends on the situation. Once you tap into that 80, it's gone. So if you only use 40, you don't get to bank the other 40. It's now all gone. And the Department of Labor is the one that set those standards to encourage people to be gone the full 2 weeks, whether they're quarantined or has someone ill in their house. But for childcare reasons, if you've already used all 80, then the Department of Labor said we would pay them 2/3 of their pay while they were gone, and then they could use 1/3 of vacation or sick time to then get 100% paycheck. So that 2/3 was unlimited, but it ended December 31st.
But once you start the clock, your 80 goes all the way, or not.
Yeah, right, if it's not childcare reasons.
You take 20, then you're done.
Correct.
And every one of them took the 80.
Not everyone.
Okay.
I just, my first gut reaction to this is I feel like we should just continue to move on with this for a little while until we know what's gonna happen at the federal side. I mean, to me, there's no reason we shouldn't take care of our employees if this happens. I mean, just because their number got called this year and not last year, but I think it's completely unfair if an employee gets it now and this is gone, and someone that got it a month ago and they had this pay. I just think that's crappy. And I think as a county, we should take care of our employees that way, but that's just me. So, and if it has to come out of gaming or something, or some pot of money in our, I guess you can't do it like gaming, but out of some other pot, so be it. But I'd rather err on the side of taking care of people than not.
Have you got a dollar figure that we spent on it?
I don't, I meant to run it for today, and I'm sorry, I forgot. We can ask for reimbursement if it caused overtime. So if 911, if someone in 911 is out and someone had to fill their spot, and it was overtime for that person, we can ask for that reimbursement.
Have we been doing that?
We've been pulling some reports, I'll have to check with Matt.
Are we required to act on this at this time, or can we float just a little while to see what happens here?
We are not required to act, it's whatever time
We're not the
frame.
only county or city in the country that's going through this.
Right, so I reached out to the other county HR directors, and it's about 50-50. About half are just stopping it altogether, and the other half have extended their own until March
So
31st.
let me just give you a hypothetical to go down this path, devil's advocate from what I'm saying. Someone gets it, we don't have this policy in place, they gotta use their sick leave, and then all of a sudden the feds come in and say, yep, we're gonna do that. Are we gonna give them their sick leave back and reimburse them that? Or are we just gonna say, well, sorry, you're in that gray area, you don't get it?
Yeah, it would depend on how it came down. If they would backdate it till January 1st, then we would go back in the system and give their sick time back and then replace it. Although,
Would we be reimbursed for that?
no, only if it's overtime.
Well, the hard part is like a third of our county employees have pretty much got the virus, so it's tough to, I guess it doesn't necessarily include your families and everything.
Which is equal to the 150 that we're using.
At one time, we had 60 people out with COVID. 48 actually had the disease, 12 were quarantining at home because of a family member or spouse. Currently, as far as I know, on Friday, we only had 3. So we've done really well, and I think that, I don't know if it's society that's helping us get those numbers down. I don't know if it's our employees being more careful. I don't know if it's the mask requirement we put in the courthouse, but we're doing relatively well. And I'm kind of with Brian on that. I think we ought to just kind of let it ride and see how it plays out.
So, we're gonna track it for
So
a
I've
couple
asked,
more weeks or something and then revisit it, or what is that?
I feel, yeah, we should, because if we got 150 people using it, do we have the funds from the county? And then if we turn around and the federal government says we're gonna do it, there's our funding for it.
There's a chance we probably wouldn't be reimbursed.
But I agree with Justin. Is it fair to someone who's got it right now that last week, if they would have filed, they would have had money or time? It's really comes down to what the federal government's gonna do. And we don't know till probably 2 weeks out, I suppose.
I guess my thing is if they don't backdate it, I think this county should take care of the people that are in the gray. You know?
I agree with that, but I wanna see the funding. Where do we get the funding?
I mean, it's not gonna be new funding, I think this is gonna be, we pull from name your fund. I mean, we're not broke, we're not to the point where we don't have a fund balance. We have a very high amount of fund reserve actually in comparison to other across the
Okay.
state. So I mean, I would say we would work with Becky to figure out the best, most appropriate account to do that, but it's not a situation where like if we had to pay 10 people's salary like this, that it's really gonna hurt our bottom line in the end, because it's not at all. I mean,
I agree.
I'm not saying we should sit there and go fund everything either. I mean, I just feel like if the feds come in and say, yep, we're gonna reinstate this, and they didn't backdate it for the people that have COVID right now, that we're doing a huge disservice to our employees. I just don't think that's right or fair.
I agree.
Okay, so, just so that I'm clear, is it 126 people are out already?
150.
about 150 people have used it, yes.
Sorry, 150,
That's okay.
so those 150 are out,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
They've used it.
unless if we say that we're extending it, they would still be able to use 2/3 of their pay for daycare-related reasons.
Okay. But of the 150, how many were daycare related?
I could certainly tally that up, but it was definitely less. I mean, it wasn't, I wouldn't even say it was half.
I mean, if all of society got their vaccine, I'd feel a lot better sweeping this program up.
We've got a light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccines.
Yeah.
They're going through some issues, but we're getting it.
So
So we gotta get through this last little part and look out for the employees.
this expired December 31st of 2020,
Mhm.
and now we're at January 12th. Do we have anybody in the queue right now?
We have 3 people.
3?
Yep.
Is there any
So-
time limit on the 2/3 for daycare?
Do we
That's per month.
Mhm.
allow this to go until the end of January and then reassess it then?
I'd feel a heck of a lot more comfortable doing that, because then at least we know the feds have had a chance to actually sit down and do something with it.
And then
And it gives us time to communicate with our associations and our connections to the federal government, to see what they're, gauge the pulse, check their pulse on this too. I'd feel a lot better calling Senator Ernst's office and saying, hey, what do you think about this? Like, where are you guys at on it? You know, and if she says we're going a different direction, then we got our answer. But it's just, I just, 2 weeks ago, you get the virus, you're gonna get reimbursed, and now you don't. And I just, and 150 of our other employees were able to take advantage of this program. I would rather our county employees know that we're taking care of them, because at the end of the day, we don't function without them. And
I'll make a motion, Scott, to table this until February 2nd.
Okay, by tabling this, we're gonna allow the people in January to take advantage of it or not?
No.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear on that.
I'm not,
Speak now.
I'm not gonna second that.
Which way you see into the future. My question is, if we do this and the feds don't do it, do we continue this?
No, well, no, we would, by, going through the end of January, and February 2nd, well, I guess it'd be our first meeting in February, we would decide whether we wanna pull the plug for good or continue on. I don't know those, those exact situations of, what do we say, 3 that are in the queue. But it, by being a day late or whatever, I don't know, this just doesn't seem quite right. So,
Can we revisit it on the 26th?
sure.
Well, there's a motion on the table for the 2nd, is for the February 2nd. Is anybody gonna second that?
No, I'm not.
I'm not.
Okay.
I feel we need to move that, the revisiting of it
Okay,
to the 26th.
move it to the 26th of January.
Yeah, just have it on the agenda, keep it on the forefront.
So are we gonna allow the policy to exist until the 26th?
I mean, I don't, I guess we have to let the motion die if that's
It
what's
did.
happened. Okay, so
It died, I'm
I guess
guessing.
the motion I would make is that we continue the project until, the first meeting in January, or excuse me, in February, for review. And if the feds haven't done anything with it, then we just move on. But,
We let it drop, let it die.
yeah, we just let the I mean, 'cause that's basically the federal government saying that we're done doing it too, so. But we don't know right now, and like I said, I'd rather err on the side of our employees.
Was it originally, take me back, April 1st of last year, that's a long time ago in my mind. Was it originally, it wasn't a mandate, was it, that it was mandated?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, so we have a motion to, continue on until February 2nd of 2021.
Are we continuing till February 2nd, or are we continuing till January 31st and then reviewing on February 2nd?
I mean, sure, that's fine, we can do that.
Whichever is fine with me, I just want to make sure I have my dates right. You know, if someone gets it on February 1st,
The motion now is to run until January 31st, and we'll reevaluate on February 2nd of 2021.
I'll make a second.
We have a motion and a second. Further discussion?
I think, you know, I'd be willing to reach out to our state senators to find, or our, excuse me, our, Senator Grassley's office and see kind of what they got in mind with this, and then I just asked Jana that you reach out to whatever association groups that you deal with and see what they're thinking, and, you know, cause I have a suspicion that until the feds get everyone in the country gets their vaccine or has the opportunity to get it at least, that they'll probably reinstate a lot of these programs anyway. But at
So,
least if we pay it, we have the opportunity to try to get reimbursed.
so hypothetically, if they came back, feds, which they don't seem to move real fast. They came back and this was a mandate and retroactively went back those days. I mean, could they actually do that?
Sure.
And then we would.
Yeah, we would just give employees their vacation or sick time balances back into their buckets. And then it'd be challenging in Tyler, you know, we can give that money back, but we can't go back and undo, like it won't show in Tyler, but we'd have to keep record on just a different form or something like that.
Exactly.
How come Tyler doesn't have a way to amend that?
I mean, once payroll is closed, it's closed.
They don't have a pandemic button.
Yeah, it did not come with a pandemic button, that's correct.
That'd be an extra charge, I guarantee.
Well, I just don't see how they don't have some sort of way to asterisk that, or, that makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I agree. Any other discussion?
No, I'll call for the vote.
Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign.
Aye.
4-1, motion passes. Okay, moving right along. Where do we start the fun? Okay. We are into, the budget study discussion only. Okay. Nick is up. Who's got all of Nick's stuff? He probably does. Nick does?
Thank you. And you get a free folder.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, sir. How you doing?
Good.
Sorry, this is one word with the mask. That gator, I'm always like touching him, I feel like.
You guys have these? All right.
These are outreach funds that hard work here, Nick?
What?
So these are outreach funds at work?
Maybe. Well, good morning, everyone. As you can see, my budget's actually really simple, I'm sure, in comparison to a lot of others. And really, if you actually just pull up the budget sheet, I made 2 tick marks next to the only line item that I changed on here. And the top one would be salaries for other employees. And the reason that one is moving up is just the normal step and grade that we were instructed to calculate in. But then that second piece of paper that I put in the folder was a request from one of my employees that they're gonna retire in September. So I asked them to do that to show why I'm requesting that extra money, because she's planning on selling her sick time and vacation, so calculated that and then just added it on to the salary line item there. And then the next tick mark down there is office and data processing, so requesting to raise that one. We went with a new program. We were using a program called VIMS, which is really outdated. It really didn't do a whole lot for us. So we switched to a program that's called VetraSpec, which tracks everything for our veterans. And it's the program that most of the counties in the state use, which is very good for us because we can call almost any county now and get help if we have a question. But it really brings us into the 21st century, is what I wanted to do. So we will be able to have the function to digitally sign. Everything will be printed. It's easier to store. I can pull reports. It's a way better program. So the increase in that line item is just to cover the cost of the program for the yearly subscription.
So that's an annual number then, Nick, or not?
Yeah, it's annual, and then There's actually some wrote into that too, so with the switch over, we had to get Adobe Plus so that we can convert TIFF files to whatever the VetraSpec program needed, so. Eventually, hopefully I'm hoping we run out of TIFF files and I'll be able just to drop that at some point, but we need it until we have everything transferred over and we're sure we're good.
So that software is it web-based?
It's web-based, yeah,
So it's not loaded on your machine?
no, it's all web-based.
Okay, and then you
Which-
get,
Which would be another good thing, cause we store everything on Tyler or whatever, and there's a lot of data in there, you know, so we won't have to store it on our own servers anymore, it'll be in the, you know, in the cloud somewhere.
right, so are you actually buying licenses with this for the units that you have then?
Right. Yeah,
So, what do you have, 5 licenses then?
we have 6.
6 licenses. So but the whole 3,600 wasn't for the licenses though, was it?
Well, some of that was, so the 900 before was the VIMS program.
Right.
So, yeah, the increase is to cover the expenses for the licenses, the
Okay.
annual
And
expenses.
the other one goes away.
So Nick, if you were to go to Avoca, let's say, and you log into the system, you have access to everything you need from there, basically.
Yeah, it's just web-based, so as long as I can get on the internet and I have my username and password, I can get into it.
So when you guys do your outreach programs, you're basically.
It's gonna be a lot better for us when we start doing our outreach. It's gonna be a huge benefit, cause, I mean, we'll just be able to sign on the computer right there with the veteran instead of having to mail things back and forth. We can send it right from that program. Like, it's gonna bring a lot of benefits to us.
Hey Becky, do you have his actual budget sheet?
The budget worksheet
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's he at today?
on spending,
Yeah. That's not on your sheet, so we don't know where you're at for this year.
338, 549 in Fund 1,
Say
going.
that again.
Can you just give it, can I
Yeah.
copy that?
Yeah.
I just, make it a lot easier. I'll just go make copies real quick.
I wrote on mine, but
It's okay.
I see my chicken scratch.
As long as it wasn't bad words, you're fine. Okay,
Just
give me
notes.
1 second and I'll copy this one.
Is that budget sheet through today, is that what it is? What is it?
Yeah, it was ran, well, when was it ran, Becky?
So at the end of the month, I'm 44.48% for the year,
End of,
this year,
end of December?
correct.
What did you finish last year?
I can't remember what the actual percentage was, but it was I mean, I turned in a lot of money, and a lot of it was COVID after everything started shutting down half the year. We didn't send anybody to the trainings, which is a big expense that would have took a lot of that, so. And that's kind of where we're sitting again this year with none of the annual trainings being conducted yet. So I don't have any travel costs for them to get their CEUs done.
So with the numbers right now, it looks like you're gonna request an additional 26,000.
No.
No.
Was 26,000.
It shows 26 on the bottom, but it's, the other 2 are 23 too. Where's the other $3,000? Oh, I see 500,
446 to
IFRS.
472.
Papers went up a little.
I missed that. Where's that money at?
Am I missing something?
I thought, oh, I bet you that's it. You see that, the first tick mark you put on that sheet?
Yeah,
Go down 1 line.
yeah,
It
Okay.
was 119,431.45.
yeah.
I'm going
That's
to-
the step and grade for the part-time employee on that line item.
18, that's only 1,000.
Yeah, that's nothing.
It's $800.
I don't know, I have no idea. I did not catch that when you put those on there, it was only,
Well, you got pennies on some of the stuff, and then, office stuff that doesn't have pennies, so.
I'm gonna guess that had something to do with it.
Diapers went up too, down there at the bottom.
Yeah, that's not much.
So what did you figure your budget was changing, Mr. Jezelka?
20,510.
Pardon me?
20,510, that's just a salary line item, and then,
No, I'm talking about from last year to this year. Did you have your budget going up $26,000?
I'm requesting it to go up 20, to cover the salary when Pam retires.
Where's that on here?
It's in that first tick mark line item is where that salary would go. So the step and grade increases for the other employees and the increase to buy out her sick time
There's
and
the 20 right there.
vacation.
That's fine.
It's just,
That's all right.
Do you need one?
No, as long as you guys have it, that's fine.
I wasn't thinking.
Pretend I'm not here.
Okay.
So in round numbers, so in 1920,
67,000.
What are you looking, Tim?
That's what he gave back last year was 67,000.
Well, wasn't that mostly just because of, well, if you're talking. Yeah, I don't know.
So your budget last year was,
535, 399.
let's see,
You're talking about 2021 or
2020.
in 2019?
No, 2020, 2021.
The one we're in right
Yeah,
now.
435, 589.
Right, what we're in right now. And he's only used 171 of that.
Yeah.
And this is through 12/31 through December. So you said that was about 48%?
Do you have an expenditure, any big expenditure that hasn't happened
said
yet?
44.8, is what he said.
You know?
Something there's not.
I don't think that I do.
So by like, you know, dummy math, in my mind, it'd be, you're looking at like 342 or 343. If you were to double what they've done in
Right.
6 months.
Yeah,
What do we usually spend on training and trips?
So there's a lot that goes into that. So the big training that we do will be somewhere. This year it was supposed to be in Georgia, which got canceled, and that would have, I think total with who I had to send down there would have been just under $12,000 for those with airfare and hotels and food and everything, so.
Hey, Becky,
Our budget is $8,000 for that on our own line item, but then I get a $10,000 allocation from the state, and then we can use some of that money for training dollars for us, so. But so without that, the $10,000 is, I'm using that other places that they have defined on what I can spend that on, and that $8,000 didn't get used, so.
So what are we doing for training now? Are you doing,
So actually our association is just now, they're putting together some virtual training that's gonna go on at the end of the month, so this is really
is
their.
that costing?
No, No,
Okay.
that's free. So this is their first attempt of doing any training since
Our part
this
is
thing
they-
kicked off.
They're mandated to take this training, so they have, no matter, they have to complete it, so I don't wanna, I caution us on cutting that.
So we have to be nationally accredited, and which all of us are, but then there's the CEUs that you have to maintain to keep the current. So going to those trainings is what gets us those CEUs.
So we keep the budget close to where we were,
Well, yeah, look at this.
and if you turn back money,
This is
that's
probably a big
just
discrepancy.
any particular year because of the COVID.
Well,
Because they will pick up next year, I assume.
Did you see that?
another couple line items that normally we could have money turned in is there's rent and assistance and utilities assistance.
And then the next year
And
it's gone.
that depends on how the year is, right? Like how many veterans we're helping with assistance, so can't really judge what that, you know, I hope I could turn it all back in, and then there's no veterans out there that need any help, but
That's probably the largest change.
Becky, can we pay, retirement out of the general supplemental?
That's a good question. I can check.
That would, you know, our cash reserve and general supplemental went up last year. That can only be spent on wages,
On certain
salary,
things,
insurance.
insurance, yeah,
So
benefits.
that should qualify, right?
Yeah, I'll check, just to make sure.
Okay, so we might be able to pay that out of our.
Yeah.
Would that be the unused sick leave and stuff on his,
Yes, the
Okay.
20,000.
okay.
So
All right.
between that and then the vehicle purchase from before, that's 60 of, and that might actually explain that.
Right.
So that's just something for us to remember when we get ready to put our budget all together, that we may be able to fund his, retirement and buyout out of the general supplemental. So you couldn't make a note of that, Becky, thank you.
I did, I'll check on
And
it today.
that's 20,
We
right?
got a stapler here. Tim, can you put
Yep.
a stapler? Thanks.
That was 20,000, right?
well, I estimated her buyout at 17,388 based off of just maxing out her sick time and her vacation, so.
And she's at the top of her steps too, right?
Correct.
So I mean, if you think of it, I mean, obviously depending on who you hire, but, there may be some additional savings there too. I'll bet you can get you close to that 20 number.
That's not so bad.
So
That
then
helped
we're
out
real
a lot.
close to being
Thanks,
right
Ben.
on budget.
Yeah.
If
Yep.
that can happen.
That's the plan, then.
How much, I didn't see, is your line item for your, the money you get from the state on here?
Yeah, it's,
Grant, 10,000, top line, state grant.
There you go. How much of that did you use?
last year we spent all 10,000. We will spend all 10,000 this year.
And there's no talk of them. Years past, they
Yeah.
slashed that in half once, so I'm just curious.
I haven't heard any talk about them slashing that.
Thanks for letting us know about that retirement ahead of time, that's appreciated.
That, yeah, those are, I don't know, call them unfunded mandates.
Yeah, I don't want her to retire. She's a good employee and a lot of knowledge, so it's gonna hurt when she
How many
leaves.
years?
She'll have 13 in the county,
Okay.
but she worked in one of the schools before, so she's been in IPERS for quite a while.
Okay.
Okay, so,
Okay,
Good with that.
thanks, Nick.
Good.
thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
Does Jason know he's on the agenda today?
Jason, Slack.
Slack?
Yeah.
So, someone asked him about putting a whiteboard up too. We have one, don't we, somewhere?
What?
Yeah,
we
right
got-
there.
Are you gonna take that big one? Well, I was gonna put it in the conference room in B wing, but you can put it in here as long as I have access to use it.
Well, what,
Yeah, that's fine.
He has that smaller one that we can put on an easel.
Yeah, I don't know.
All right, whatever. All right, so
we can get one for here.
you wanna move on with John and give?
Well, we got,
That'd be good.
I just wanted to-
we can move on with,
Would you like me to call Jason?
yeah, would you
Okay,
please?
I'll step out and call him, yes.
John, you wanna? Sure. Give your sheets?
I thought it was
Yeah,
last.
absolutely.
No, sheriff is,
Not anymore, good.
Smart man.
I don't wanna be behind him.
well,
prompting on it.
Andy, do you have any, watchers?
Like,
Is anybody on YouTube?
I got those other two done,
I know, and I wanna commend you for that, cause they're awesome.
but I'd like to stop though.
I went down
Where
there,
will we stop?
No
I went
question.
down there to go hunting, and I'm
I'm
like,
just wondering
wow,
whether you
like, this is something that
need to keep monitoring.
actually happened.
It just depends, I mean.
Who monitors,
I don't know.
who monitors
Well,
those?
'cause they've
If
crossed
they-
the boundary.
I mean, is it just
Not his fault.
self-reporting if they go out?
We see them like snow removal and when we're out at nights, we do
Right,
check
but I
them in the
mean,
morning. but They get hit and we have to pay for
Does
repairs.
Mid-Am go is that who, or do you have to hire a contractor to go out and re-bulb it?
We're usually hiring a contractor to do that. Some of them Mid-American own, some we own. It's
Okay.
kind of a hodgepodge.
It's super bright, LED, it was awesome. I think you guys did an awesome job on that, so. And the people down there are super happy.
I'm afraid I'll be doing those everywhere if we get started on those. It's a slippery slope.
Well, I think there's just a few that we gotta really consider that, you know.
Yeah, the traffic numbers should kind of somewhat drive that and those blind,
Yeah, there's quite a bit of accident history south of town and those were,
Yeah,
Right.
actually, that
Those
was
are
a
tough.
trail I pulled up on one not that long ago, so,
okay.
anyway.
all right,
Where do you wanna start at, first page and go through it? I mean, Brian hasn't, been through these, so we need to kind of,
sure, and
Not this big.
help, not this big, help him,
One of the, I mean, just so you, I'm sure you're familiar and see it, but one of the things I like to do that helps me is just go back and look and see their trends of what. You can generally see that his budget will stay the same, but then all of a sudden you'll see spikes, and then he'll be able to explain your spikes.
so normally I do this in PowerPoint, but I think last year you wanted to see it all, so we're gonna see it all this year. I spend out of 3 different funds. Some of those are kind of broke down wonky, and I'll try to call your attention to which ones I'm spending out of. But the first one, there's out of gaming. We have $400 in there for retirement. I put $1,600 in there for next year. I think I only have one retirement, but I'd like to start an employee recognition program, and this is the only fund that would allow me to do that. So the difference between 400 and 1,600 there is that program.
So you want us to give you another $800 or $1,200 out of gambling?
Wow, all right.
So John, what would that, I mean, would it be like covering plaques and?
Plaques, mugs, yeah, food for safety training, all those things are difficult for us to deal with.
Flower fund kind of thing.
So that's what's in there, and that's what caused that change. Going down from there, we go into revenues into the secondary road fund. Those are pretty well doing all right. I tend to underestimate the revenues, because if you overestimate revenues, it gets ugly in a hurry. So entrance permits and utility permits weren't in our first budget. So you see it hasn't really been budgeted. We had some activity at the end of fiscal year 20. We're more than halfway there on entrance permits, not quite halfway there on utility permits. So I left those at $10,000. We should accomplish that easily between those two.
So are those, able to be done online by the contractors then, or how are those handled?
No, those are paper. We've been working on an online thing. I don't know that our software reviews were that good, but
Okay,
yeah, those are pay in person and submit in person.
so what's the schedule for those? Is there a set fee for each one of those, or are they?
Yeah, the
graduated?
entrance permits are $100 each, so we've done 56 this year. The utility permits are $100 or $100 per mile, based on how much road we have to review before they put the utility in, so. Utilities, $100. We're just trying to recover our costs there. We have to send a foreman out and review their permit to make sure they're not boring through our pipes and that sort of stuff.
Those those
It's
utility,
probably not enough, Brian.
It's probably not enough, no.
is that is that only for the underground, or is that for stuff that goes overground too?
That's all of them, yeah,
Okay.
we'll review
Where
overhead
does
as
it
well.
bounce at the year end though? I mean, do you think, or do you think it's still kind of a loss of our time?
I think we break even on the entrance permits. I think we lose, if you took man hours, we probably lose thousands
Really?
in, utility. You know, we've got our
So why,
foreman
like,
out there.
what prompted you to have it at $100? I'm just
Well,
curious.
this is the first year for it.
Yeah, this will be the first
We
full
didn't
year of
do it
it.
before.
We just did it at the end of the previous fiscal year, so we're not very well into it. The utility permits,
Where I'm going with this is it'd just be helpful to know if your permit costs $100 and we're losing, I won't call it losing, but you know, we're spending thousands of man hours. You know, do we reassess that fee, you know? And maybe we bump it up to make it
Well,
look a little, or something.
Since it's a new program, now's the best time to, I don't know how many of those, there isn't that many, at this point,
56.
where, yeah. So how much, if we can get that data, we can kind of start.
I mean, do you have a way you can figure that out?
yeah, we know about what hours and as far as a typical permit that goes easy, I don't think we're too far off. The ones we get burned on is the contractors aren't doing very good work, like along Lincoln Highway. We have struggled with this contractor and run him out of the county twice, and those ones we're losing money on because we didn't build anything in there to claim those costs back. So if we have a lot of oversight into them, yeah, we're losing money. If it's just approve the permit and they build it according to the permit and we have no problems, we're fine. So it's just hard to know how those are gonna go for us.
Can we reword this?
Reword the permit,
Something, you know.
Is that what you're saying?
Like
I'm
a-
just
like a
asking,
bond
John, you
charge
said
amount?
one contractor is tough. Can we reword the permit so if we have X amount of extra time, we get a charge in?
Yeah, there might be some way to put a bond on them that they file, then we charge against that bond. When the project's done, we return whatever's left over. Administratively, I haven't done anything like that, so, I mean, I think it can be done, but
I guess what I see is that prompts him to be more diligent in his paperwork and working with you and doing it correctly.
I don't think they're gonna let me single the companies out that I have problems with, but,
Oh, okay,
yeah.
okay.
Lena's not listening, so.
I'm
Yeah, I heard you.
just asking,
She's ignoring me.
It's probably a good idea to not say anything in public.
just asking.
We can look
know
at
how
those.
that comes out at the end of, this fiscal year. This is the first year for it.
Yeah, I feel somewhere,
but if we're not, yeah, I mean, if we're off as much as you think we are, then I don't know what the landscape looks like out there for that.
we're kinda thinking it'd average out. Some are probably lower than that, and some are higher, so we're just trying to look for an average and
In Iowa,
just for the permits we see coming through as far as what our costs are.
no, yeah, but, so, at the end of the day, is it to cover our cost? I mean, we're not even making money, and
Some of the permit costs are higher, like the utility permit, we're doing that per mile charge.
right,
And some of them had a higher lump sum and didn't really look at the scope of the project, but, you know, we have a lot of, farmers that wanna bore a water line under our road, and that's a utility permit for us, so, I mean, that takes us all of 10 minutes to consider that sort of project, you know, then, you know, a fiber optic running miles and miles of road takes a lot more effort, so we didn't
If you're close.
we didn't
it's
really
not
wanna
a
stick
deal
it to the residents that are just with a big lump sum just to get onto the road.
right.
So we're trying to build that in there a little bit.
So should there be levels of those utility type permits then?
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do with the per mile cost, so it'd ramp up based on the size of the project.
Okay. Okay, well, yeah, if you can collect that data, I think that would be helpful for keeping
So
that.
miles and miles would be one permit.
Mhm.
Now I understand. Okay.
Well, we got to that, so we're down to Hungry Canyons. I have that 970, sorry, I got 3 different reports here I'm trying to read from. We have that 975 in there. That's gonna be our those projects we let the other day with the EWP, that's gonna be the reimbursement for those coming back to us.
Well, yeah, before you go down there, these other ones that you were receiving, miscellaneous reimbursement, miscellaneous grant, state grants and reimbursement from AJP
Mhm.
and the Living Trust miscellaneous. Were those one-time grants?
Yeah, you got a little of everything going on there. The miscellaneous reimbursements, the 1.3, I believe, was a bridge reimbursement, which is the same thing as that 8J is also if we're on a gravel road system and we get state funds, we have to pay upfront and the state reimburses us. And that's what that 8J means. So
Okay.
those are reimbursements for bridge projects.
Okay.
And I believe that 1.3 is as well. So we don't have any of those projects going on this year, so yeah, we won't have those in there.
Well, it's showing that you budgeted 0, and you received 20,000.
Sure, so with the budget ending in July, I'm in the middle of the construction season, so I spill over a lot. So we have those revenues that came back to us on a reimbursement. So monthly, we would seek a reimbursement, so whatever work we did in June, we wouldn't get paid July, or,
Okay.
you know, if it stretched further, we program the projects in the year that the contract is let, and when they're finished, kind of drags through the budget, I guess. Living roadway,
Well, the Hungry Canyon deal, is that all them contracts we did?
yes, with the EWP,
Yeah.
What's EWT?
emergency watershed protection.
Okay.
It's a NRCS grant for the flooding in 2019. So they're paying for some repairs there.
The bomb cyclone, right?
Yes.
So there was a bunch of money that was received for that through feds that came through the state. Is that accurate? Yeah, good.
Okay.
Then road use taxes, money back on fuel tax and registrations, we're trending along pretty well on those. We are the high county in the state as far as those revenues.
We are the what?
The highest county in the state, so we get more money than any other county in the state on those.
John, will you stop there just for 1 second?
Sure.
What are you limited to spend the road tax funds on?
Everything in this budget is fine. So the road tax gets split, and some of that goes to the farm to market, and I can only use that in certain roads, so that might be what you're thinking of, but that's held in Ames and the DOT. It's not physical money here, it's something I write checks against.
Okay.
So this is part of the fuel tax that comes directly to us.
So, you said that some of that's kept in Ames. Some of this, let's just call it 6 million for the conversation. How much of that they keep in Ames to use for road tax?
I have about 2 million a year allocation that sits in the farm to market account.
Okay, so that leaves 4 million.
No, all this comes here.
That's not in there.
Oh, that's not in
All
here?
this comes
That's not
here.
in here.
And
Okay,
there's
so what can you spend that money on?
that 6.5, anything in my budget. There's no restrictions on that.
Salaries?
Salaries, projects, materials,
Okay, good.
there's no restrictions.
So if you go back to 1920 budget, you budgeted about 6.5 million, and you brought in about 7.5.
Is that FEMA?
Nope, that would be,
Road use tax.
yeah.
What is that, does that,
So the DOT provides projections and I use their projections, but it looks like in 1819, I was
Same way.
$1 million over projections.
yeah,
1920, I was $1 million over projections. It really just is what it is. I mean, they provide the calculations and I use their estimate, but we are ahead this year on the revenues as well.
it's on here. We're at 3.6, we're gonna be at 7.2 again.
Yeah. We're halfway through the year and we only have a third of our money left outstanding on road use tax, so we're ahead on that as well again this year.
So if you don't spend it, where do those funds go? In
Balance.
the cash reserve?
Mine, not yours.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
So we have $1 million.
It's Tim, you gotta clarify that, you know.
So there's $1 million approximately. Why can't we use that to improve our Silco system?
Sure, it just gets pulled into the next budget in the following year. So whatever doesn't get spent is just in the next budget.
Okay, so then,
You caught that question, right, Brian?
Yeah, I did.
so if there's $1 million from last year, I'm sorry, if there's $1 million from the 18-19 budget, did you budget to spend that in the 19-20 budget? I'm sorry, the 2021 budget?
Yeah, I've been in deficit spending for years. So whatever's left over, I try to drag into the next budget.
Okay.
I'm not, just for a little bit of history, so probably, I don't know, probably 7, 6, 7, maybe 8, 7, 8 years ago, we were taking this money and using it, borrowing it, I guess, from him or Rhodes to keep things kind of afloat.
To keep the county afloat?
Yeah, it
To
was a
make payroll
terrible
for-
practice, to be honest with you, because it locked up his money and he wasn't able to use it.
I was sugar daddy.
We got rid
We
of
paid
it.
him back. We paid him back.
Whoops.
No, we got rid of
Careful,
that.
there's an attorney behind
So
it.
we've corrected that,
Yeah,
we've corrected that.
2015, we got rid of that.
If we get to
Okay,
if we get to the revenues, the construction's like the first thing we get into, if you wanna talk about seal coats at that point.
I guess one of the things, if we're carrying $1 million over, one of the things we learned out in Crescent was, are we doing a disservice to the taxpayers by not spending that money and improving things as we, you follow what I'm saying?
Right, so this road use tax money, and I'm not saying they're not taxpayers, but this comes from basically the use of the road, and I don't know what the percentage would be for sure, but it's probably 60-40, 35, 60.
I know you said you deficit spend, so like, if you carried over $1 million, you put it in the next year's budget, did you spend that, or are you actually growing a balance with it?
It usually gets spent down, and the next year, I mean, everything we do kinda carries into the next year, so it kinda blurs the lines for me.
I guess what we're looking at is like,
Yeah.
is there a sliver of that pie that we could use to enhance seal coat project?
Yeah, I'm gonna show you where it's at when I get to it.
Okay.
The problem with my budget is so crazy variable. I'm gonna show you 2 million less expenditures this year, just cause that's just how my year ends up, you know. About a third of my budget, about 30% of my budget's in wages, everything else is materials and fuel and I have to float with those, so it gets
Okay.
kinda wild how my expenditures go, but
Just,
we'll get to it when we get there.
Before we go there though, I think, and we can talk about more when we get to that part of this, but I think it'd be helpful for us as a board to take a look at things like the seal coat project and your 5-year plan before we, because we're gonna look through this right now and we're gonna get an idea where your budget's at, but then if we have these ideas like, hey, we got some roads we think should be seal coated or whatever, I think we need to take a look at that and see how it affects this number in the end, because
I'll
at the end of it, you're end up with $8 million. Well, one year you had, that money was gonna go to a G30 project, and then we did end up not using it, so what do we do with that 8 million kind of thing? So that's kind of where we gotta plan that a little and work with you to understand what your vision is too. We'll let you keep going though.
Okay, so if we got through road use tax, I have miscellaneous state grants and reimbursements. We get some smaller grants.
What so just to back up on the time 21 funding,
Okay.
so you budget it, but you don't show activity.
So, yes, and I'm sure the treasurer is as frustrated as anybody is. So when they send the checks from the state, they're electronic and it's not split out. So I have a spreadsheet that splits out time 21 from the regular farm to market payment. But when we get paid from the state, it's not split.
Okay,
So it always shows 0, then my annual report, I have to correct it. So that's pretty typical that it doesn't show. So that's more farm to market money on top of the other, but it's from the time
that's a
21.
real convoluted formula.
Yes.
That Debris had that, like a sophisticated ethanol making machine that it goes this pipe and this goes this way and this, you know.
Yeah.
It's out there somewhere, okay.
And when the state pays us, they don't tell us what money that is, it's just, it comes as one fund,
But
so.
you're thinking you're gonna get,
Actually, there we go, let's back up to road use tax. If you wanna know why that's almost $1 million ahead, it's because time 21 funding is shown as road use tax. Sorry about that, I should have caught on to that a little quicker.
okay. So you think the time 21 is gonna go up to a couple thousand
Yeah.
bucks, okay?
But that's coming in with the road use, we don't have a way of separating that until the end.
Isn't road use tax down though from COVID?
It was, I was 12% ahead of, when all this started, I was 12% ahead in road use, and I'm only like 8% ahead now. So it might have dropped 4%, but I'm still ahead of where I
All right, all
projection should
right,
be,
that's
so.
good to hear.
So I'm doing all right in that one.
Okay, and then the FEMA flood real quick.
Still have some cash outstanding, being reimbursed on that, and we should get that this fiscal year, but not next. So we have that 284 there.
That's what they owe us?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
But no, we've received that.
Now he's re-estimating it in his budget.
Oh, yeah, it showed as activity, so we have received that.
We have received it.
We received it. It wasn't budgeted this year, we received it.
Oh, okay.
So that was just a reestimate to show that we're gonna have that coming in.
Okay. Or hopefully
That was like spent, so you requested it based on the fact that you spent that, right?
Yeah, that was a 75% reimbursement of what our actual costs were.
75?
yeah.
Okay.
Is that what you received?
Mhm.
Okay.
I did get an overpayment. I gotta clean up some overpayments as well. I've never been overpaid before, but I'm in the middle of doing that, so.
Okay. Because we would have paid 15% of that came from somewhere.
I think the state tossed in
Doesn't the
10.
state pay 10?
Yeah, I think the state pays 10.
And we pay the 15.
Yeah, 15 was
Did you-
11,000.
Did you take it out of secondary roads for the 15, or were you taking?
Yeah, it came out of whatever, I mean, if it was gravel, it came out of the gravel line item. If it was
Okay,
something else, it came out of whatever line item it normally would.
okay.
Some miscellaneous refunds there. One of them's, fuel tax. Tina's been changing our fuel systems. We used to have to seek reimbursement for our fuel tax. She's got most of that automated now, so that's probably gonna disappear, but I kept 1,000 in there just in case we don't have it all cleaned up yet this year, so.
So you sold,
So the sale of capital assets, that's buildings, if we finish the building project, that's the appraised value of the buildings that we will know, they'll be obsolete, I guess, once that's complete. And I just use the insurance assessed values.
right, insurance guesstimation.
So that should finish us with revenues there. Becky and I disagree. I always think property tax ought to be a revenue shown in there, and it's not. So I was requesting 5.3 million in property tax. And I was proposing to transfer
Where do you see?
2 points, it's not in there, because
Okay.
it's not,
It's in our department, our non-departmental transfers, and it goes from rural to roads.
Okay.
we argue because we don't show it the same, so. Then, I was gonna transfer 2.75 from local option sales and service tax this year, so that would round out the revenues.
Okay, can we stop right there just for a second?
Mhm.
You, in this budget, you're requesting 5.3 million? in
Yes.
Property tax? What was it last year?
What was it last year?
5.1.
5.1, I was gonna say, I didn't bring that sheet with me.
200,000 more.
I requested 5.2, you guys bumped me down to 5.1.
So now he's asking for 5.3?
So Becky, real quick on that, $335,000 of new money in the rural fund. How much of that goes to, secondary roads?
Well, that's up to you, whether you give him his 5.3, because all of the transfer to roads is from rural. So this current year is 5.1, he's requesting 5.3.
But there's other departments that are funded by the rural fund.
Planning, yeah,
Planning.
animal control. Part of the sheriff's department, off the top of my head. I can run that real budget, I can go get that even if you want. I almost brought my computer.
If planning and zoning and animal control and all those departments went up 100,000, if we left the levy the same, we could come up to that 5.3 that he's requesting.
Depending on where everybody else requests, yes, and then our fund balance, yes,
Without raising the levy.
correct.
Okay, thank you very much.
John, what is your increase for? What,
Just my budget grows every year. I've tried to keep my tax growth, around under 2%, I guess, and if we get behind, we have those 16% increases I had years ago, and I just warn you guys just to keep growing, because once we get behind, there's no catching up.
we'll see how
No.
the roads do.
Oh,
Cause you're saying you take the rest from fund balance, but would that be like one-time type things or ongoing?
what do you mean? I didn't say I was gonna take a fund balance, did I?
You just said the rest would come out of fund balance.
No, if the other departments had a major increase over the additional increase we got from valuation.
No.
So,
Well,
cause then if it is, then I don't like that.
So-
it's not.
the
And
rural,
valuation went up on rural 5.6%, so.
right, but it's still only, what is it, 23,000 a penny?
Now, this year it'll be 18,858 a penny.
19.
Right, it's almost 17 when I did it before.
So
So,
18, yeah.
so Brian, for every penny on the rural levy, it only generates 17.
No.
Or no, excuse me, 19. And I probably should do that every year, I know. And then the penny on the general levy is, are we about 58 or 60?
54,486.
Okay, 55. Okay, John, we're gonna start on the expenses.
Sure. So if you look at those numbers, you'll see some hopefully everybody has a mark off to the side there. That third set of numbers, so it says 0200.
He did that
It-
while he was on.
Everything in those first 5 lines is your local construction. So
He said,
if
he sent you guys an
if you want to move stuff and prioritize projects, this is really where we ought to be doing it. I'm showing about 700,000 in that line item. That money is pretty well set aside there, 1.3 towards 245th Street Bridge and that grading. Another 400,000 for a bridge and bridge materials to be let. So that 1.75 or 1.7, I guess, total there. If you wanted to do seal coats instead of 245th, that's the place to take those projects. The remainder of the budget's pretty much maintenance, and we'll go through it. And there's some of those items buried in there, but if you want to make projects a priority, this is where we ought to start, I guess, is up here in the construction end.
Out of those first 5 line items.
Yeah.
So how much of that have you already, I don't wanna call it out, are you saying that's where you haven't allocated all that money to something?
It's sitting there for those projects, but it hasn't been spent.
So
So-
we either reprioritize those projects
Right,
or, okay.
right. So kind of I have a priority of local projects I'm working on, but if you want to switch that priority, I guess this is where the money's
That's where I
at
was
to
going
do
with
that.
my statement earlier, I just feel like
Yeah.
we probably need to take a look at what you got on the list of projects for this year, so we can know, because our priorities change obviously throughout the year, but I think, it would help us to know what you got on set for the next fiscal year
Yeah,
in comparison to this budget.
the 5-year plan's mostly all state and federal funds. You don't typically use those on seal coat roads. You could, but it's at the sacrifice of the L66s and the L34s and the big highways we need to do. So you'd wanna do those in local, or I'd recommend you do them in local, but there's where the money's at for those projects.
Seems like any road we seal coat, all of a sudden we have construction for homes there. A lot of homes.
So we want that.
I know, and
I don't know that it pays for it. It doesn't in my budget anyway, maybe it does state countywide, but.
In the future, I understand. Now, you and I talked one time, a group of neighbors can petition for a road,
Right.
can petition the county, and then they could pay some extra fees.
There's a special assessment where they can pay over 10 years on their property taxes. Right now, we have a county policy that the county will participate a percentage based on what the traffic count is, so. If they had 250 vehicles a day, the county would pay 25%. If they had a business on there, the board could kick in an extra 10%. So we kind of wrote that policy up years ago, just so we had something documented, but.
I think the best thing we do there is get you and Matt and Wyatt or Pam in the same room and just take a map and say, okay, here's where we see areas of development throughout our county. And then we take a look at our seal coat program for new seal coat and see if we can marry those up. We may not be able to, but if we can, then we do. And then, cause maybe you're not seeing that dollar on your end, but we're seeing it on our end, and.
Which is.
We'll give it back.
But, I mean, if we keep moving ahead every year, people are moving out of the cities, and the housing study we done,
And the tough thing for me is if we can overcome the construction costs, that's one thing, but now I have truck routes, a fleet to maintain or add to, salt, sand. I mean, it kind of reverberates through my budget expense wise. A mile of seal coat might be $250,000 to build, but it's probably $25,000 a year for me to take care of as well over 10 years. So I'm kind of.
That's helpful to know those costs too when we have the
Yeah.
conversation.
and how much is it a year per gravel?
Right.
The gravel's probably between 4,000 and 6,000 a year for us to maintain.
But then in those 10 years, if we've got more revenue from property taxes,
Yeah, I mean, depending on where these are, I mean, they could be substantial.
Yeah.
correct?
I mean, we did $2 million worth of seal coats last year. I don't know what that reflected in a gain of.
Brand new seal coats, you mean?
Oh, I guess most of it is reconstruction. The only new one we've done recently is out Hunt Avenue, I guess, and I don't know that we've got any development that occurred from that or not.
And we've got to maintain whatever roads we've got, but I'd like to see us even move ahead 1, 2, 3 miles a year. That's what I'd like to see. I really think we could make the.
The only thing I thought is, I just think we gotta keep it as targeted as possible. I agree with you, I think we should be doing that, I just think we gotta make sure it.
I think we've had those discussions with Matt. I think the wish list was much further than my capabilities were,
Like, what
I
comes
think.
in my mind is like 240th, for example, because I know there's a bunch of neighborhoods we looked at out there.
And we started Hunt, but we never really finished it.
Got stuff going on, and think, that if you're able to build a good solid road, it's just a Knox farm ground that was getting ready to be sold off for development. And then, Tim and I, we had a conversation with a gentleman about up 92, there's another opportunity there, was that 220th or not 220th, it's something like, it's between 220th and say 250, somewhere in there.
But your ordinances are only gonna allow a minor subdivision on a seal coat, so you're still limited. Is that still 3 splits or however many? I mean,
Could it be individual homes off the seal coat?
yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're still limited on the development.
I mean, up off Coldwater, you look at the amount of building that's there that has happened, it's been a good boom for the county.
Yeah.
We've changed that part of the code in planning and zoning, that if there's a certain thickness of seal coat will allow a major development.
I think you just allowed the minor subdivision. I don't think you allowed minor subdivisions weren't allowed and they got added recently. I don't think majors
I don't know.
allowed yet.
Anyway,
I think we
Yeah.
get back together. and circle back to-
You really need the density if you're gonna make the money
Well,
on it.
I think you almost gotta see the picture of where we're at with roads and where they're,
That colored one you gave us the one year that had, like the red roads were the new seal coat you're gonna put in, the green ones were I think if you do that for us again, that would help a lot.
and
You
then,
probably already got it sitting there already, I imagine. You can probably just update your old one.
and then, which we never did receive, safety and that type of thing should drive our our decisions on what do we wanna do for roads and what the future looks like for those and that stuff, so. The numbers, they guesstimate those numbers, I don't know, are we up this year for getting a new count on road numbers?
No, I got counted, we should get it delivered from 2020, but
We
Yeah.
should get a report,
we should get a report this year.
okay,
It's usually about a year behind, so probably June or July.
okay.
John, I got a question. Railroad Highway, the bike trail. I know a few years ago you had some monies in that. No, that all came out of the trail?
Mhm.
Okay, that was a question of mine.
We provided some of the contract administration on it, but
Right.
that was all of our involvement on that.
Okay, all right.
I certainly don't wanna beat this up and have this be a 5-hour discussion, but I wanna parlay off of what Justin mentioned earlier, and that is when you mentioned these items as where we could make, changes or make it a priority. Well, in 18-19, there was 4 million budgeted, we spent 2. In 19-20, it was 3.3, we spent 900. This year, we budgeted about 1.7, we've only spent about 450. So we're not getting our priorities taken care of there, are we, John?
Right, so a lot of you see that there's programs, or projects budgeted and the project didn't happen for one reason or the other. So one of those years, I was gonna match money at the railroad and I never got the railroad to come through with the match money, so that project just died. So there's been expenses put in there for projects, but these projects are pretty darn variable.
Maybe to help us, we just do a quarterly review these with you, just so we know, cause that might happen, and I don't even know what project you're talking about right now that fell through. But maybe if we do have that idea, we can kind of reassess, cause I don't know, when we laid out that priority, it's like, we expected those to get done, and then if they didn't, I have no idea why they didn't get done right now, and it's not your fault. I didn't follow up with you either, but I think maybe we
Yeah, I think
have
that's a
that
great,
quarterly conversation about it.
great idea. Once we get through this budget year and get this thing straightened out, we'll get with John and keeping these dollars in mind, take a look at your priorities and then let the board be part of the conversation to maybe assist you with spending the money in our priority area here.
Was that the Rock Quarry Road?
Yeah, so on Jocelyn Avenue, the railroad was gonna participate $500,000 and a retirement happened and nobody knew anything about it, so that project pretty well died.
Can we reapply for that?
It's basically just the numbers.
I don't wanna talk in a public meeting, but they were motivated after somebody got killed there and then they lost their motivation, so I don't,
So we need someone else there.
yeah,
Need another accident.
yeah. Well, yeah, welcome, it's distasteful, but that's what it was.
I don't know, maybe we add that to next week's agenda for our study.
Yeah,
Because of my fears, we walk out here and we think we know what John's budget is, and then,
So the dollars won't change, priorities may.
yeah, but that's.
Right, and that's
Rework it next week a little.
yeah, have it.
That's
Can you
kinda the way
bring that
my,
map in?
yeah, that's kinda the way my budget is built. We fail on a lot of projects, like I'm talking about doing 245th Street, that's been a problem for 20 years. I couldn't get a railroad agreement, so now I got a railroad agreement, but now I can't get a CenturyLink agreement. And, last year we got Sprint to say they're on board, so a lot of these things, I can't get all the agreements done and it just keeps sliding, so. If we ever get all the agreements in order, I'd really want to dip in the reserves and pull the trigger on it, but it just keeps going and these things don't happen.
Yeah, I just think we gotta sync you and Matt Wyatt's efforts on this between seal coat and development, and I think that'll leaps and bounds us ahead, so.
Schedule them at the same time.
Okay, you wanna go down to, workman's comp, is that where you wanted to go to, John?
Sure, so everything that says 7,000 before that next check mark, that's all our administrative costs. The changes in this year, we changed a little bit. We have some technicians that are I'm paying them out of administrative, but I also ran them some snow routes, so I needed to add some, or Tina needed to add some OT in there, so put some OT in the administrative line, and that was, for some of our people that can run snow routes, and we needed to pull them in. Another little increase from 7,500 to 15,000. We're trying to do a kiosk project so employees can get their data and punch in, punch out, and get access to that county website and a digital bulletin board. So we kind of got some upgrades going on there in our administrative line.
Where's, where
Data processing.
is that under the data processing line, John?
Yes.
So it's at 10 already, you're gonna keep it at 10.
The data processing hardware?
15.
Software, where's hardware, data processing hardware? Oh, okay, there you go, I see it, okay, I'm with you.
Sorry, I don't know if you want to go line by line or,
Do a quick one.
okay.
It won't hurt us.
Salary changes kind of drive a percentage change on the FICA IPers, and so those all changed as well, adjusted to the salary. I'm down to workman's comp there, showing that about the same as what we had in the past or last year. So overall, my administration went up about 3%. We're still under 5% of administrative costs for my department. So in the third digit, in the, oh, go ahead.
You on page what, now, you still on page 2?
I just went to page 2, yep. Top of page 2 is administrative, all of page 2 is administration. When you start at the top of page 3, that starts our engineering and kind of our, I missed something here. I'm sorry. Towards the bottom of page 2, we changed to engineering. There we show the salaries for those folks. Kind of the biggest changes in there, whereas I brought the survey equipment down. We need to get some new survey equipment this year. We don't next year, so that came down about 40% from 25,000 to 15. The training fees came down a little bit. I don't really see us traveling much anytime in the next year anyway, so that was behind this year, and I brought that down as well. Outside engineering work, we're getting more and more done in-house. I cut that in half now. So I don't know if you can remember back several years ago, we were pushing about 400,000 in outside engineering. I'm calling for 75,000 this year. So we've been working on bringing those skills into our office and the equipment and that sort of stuff. So we really cut into those costs. Pretty much the changes in that.
Is there like certifications for, you can come in, I know in the mechanical world or chemical world, you can become an engineer, go to college, you can become an engineer, but you don't have the, I don't know if it's PE or something behind it. Is that the same way for what you guys do in roads?
Sure. So yeah, we get the license and you get a professional license 4 years down the road.
So you are, but are your two?
I'm a professional engineer, and Jake passed his test recently, so he's a professional engineer as well.
So that's why you're able to bring some of those services over?
Actually, we hired a technician probably about 3 years ago from HGM, I guess, and we've done really good. It's kind of elevated. He helps everybody else out, so everybody's kind of learning at the same time. So we kind of started from scratch maybe 5 or 6 years ago because of retirements and stuff.
Jake's got it though. Is there anyone else? You only have 2 assistant engineers? Or is it
Lisa has a degree as well. She hasn't taken her test for
Is she
professional
working towards
license.
that?
Do what?
Is she working towards that then?
I think everybody in this world is, so yeah, should be. Then the technicians all have certification levels for material testing.
That
and
allows
sort
you
of-
more or less to put your stamp on it saying, yep, we can do this,
Mhm.
versus having to go to a contractor to stamp it, right?
Right,
So like HGM or whatever, or HDR, I guess.
yeah,
Will we ever get out of that?
no, there's so many varieties of different engineers. We don't have a structural engineer. We probably never will, so we'll forever probably be using their stamp on that sort of work. So,
Well, the other thing it allows you to do though too is if you're contracting out, you can do more simultaneously though, right? So if you got your engineer working on certain projects, then you can contract out someone else, now you got two going on at once.
The problem we get into is if we have a big construction year, all my people that are administering the contract for the construction are also my designers, so I get behind in design sometimes that way as well, so. There's only so many hours I can work them, I guess, and if they're on one project, they can't be on the other, so. So that's engineering. Engineering came down about 6% and is about 5% of our total budget, so.
Down on that line item, it says outside engineering bridge. Why are you not spending those funds? I mean, you haven't since 18-19 budget. I am on page 3.
About a third of the way down.
Page 3.
We budget 120 every year.
I do spend them, that's the, I don't know if they're in the,
Maybe this line item's not showing that. You budgeted 120 and you've spent 53, another year you spent 85. This year to date, you're at 14,000 of 120.
okay, so that's bridge inspections, it goes every 2 years, so we do half the bridge every year, every bridge has to be inspected every 2. So depending on what year hits and where we are in inspection, so each, every month we're doing a couple of bridges, so that billing kind of builds up over the year. We do have, some new requirements coming up, and they just told us not to do it yet because I don't know if it's gonna go return, so we have some new bridge ratings that are kind of sitting there that I expect they're gonna cost me some more to get done, but I don't know what year they're gonna hit me.
Well, like 19, you seem like, out of what we can see anyway, that looks like one of your highest expenditure years for this. Would it make more sense to put it down like 90 or something? Isn't that goes up 30 grand?
Yeah, it could. I mean, it goes up. The problem is I have some of the truss bridges and they cost more. So it really depends on the individual bridge. Like if I have to inspect the one in Crescent, then I have to get a snooper truck and those expenses. It's just kind of
I'm just
volatile.
Well, I mean, if we are not going to be using those dollars, then maybe we could lower the levy, right? I mean, if you're consistently not spending 40,000 of it, that's 2 cents on the levy. I mean, I don't wanna put you in a bind, but, if we're taxing people to increase our cash reserve, I don't think that's right either. Take a look at that, would you? Thank you.
Yeah.
Can we move that to seal coat program?
Well, not the way it's budgeted.
Okay.
So we went through, those 2 items were just engineering administration. So when the county does a budget, you're like, don't go over this whole line item, and when I do the budget, the DOT lets me combine those 2 and move funds between just those items, so that's kind of the strange thing,
So
so.
are you saying like some of these costs were picked up by the state? So even though you spent 8,528 that year, was that match funds with state too?
No, nobody's paying that, they make me report different, I'm trying to say they make me report differently, so I have different criteria on how I report, but, so I was just saying those, everything we discussed can be swapped there, I guess. Then I'm down to 7,000 series and bridge and culvert.
Are you on page 3?
Yeah, I'm trying to get my page number here for you. It's a 71.
The bottom right of
Yeah.
your budget sheet gives you the page.
Yeah, the 7100s start, yeah, it's about the middle of the page on down, page
Okay.
3.
Salaries, bridge crew.
Yeah, so you start at the bridge crew there. Tina did some adjustments there. Our crew size was larger. We didn't replace that, so that came down a person there. Other changes are materials. When I buy materials, I can buy them straight out or I can bid them, and if I bid them, they go on page 1 where I told you could reprioritize that. And if I buy them outright, they have to come off this line. So a lot of stuff I show in different lines, so that's why I'm saying you wanna prioritize, you take it here, but those bridge materials are for bridge repairs and for a couple new bridges there.
Do you just keep an inventory then, or is it like project specific, you know, when you buy this stuff?
When we bid, we pre-bid like a 60, 80, and a 100-foot bridge. Then we just use those sizes to fit the situations. And in years past, we'd maybe have a bridge that we'd have to close and not have any warning, and now we kind of have a bridge that we can get quickly and replace those things. So we kind of worked around those surprises.
Are we doing culverts as much as possible?
Oh,
Replacing with culverts rather than a bridge?
the bridge, when we can. A lot of the old bridges, that was, you know, they were designed before computers, so it was just easier to pick a bridge out of the pile, I guess, is design a culvert. But yeah, we've done a couple. Most of them probably around Hancock there. We've done two there, and we seem to pick up a couple a year, but I don't know how many of those are even left for us.
Okay.
How many bridges you have total now?
About 324.
And you did get rid of a lot of bridges, though, didn't you?
Yeah, probably when I started here, we're about in the 340s, I think, so. I think we're probably 400 before my time, so it's a number that's always really come down.
The goal would get less.
Yeah, our revenues for bridge replacements are coming down too, so it does work against us sometimes. So to the bottom of the 7100s there is all the bridge. So bridge and culvert, we came down about 3.86% from last year. The ones that start with the 7110, those are kind of our road items. The big ticket items in there are gravel. We've been pretty bullish on gravel since 2010. I don't know if you guys remember, you know, we had the flood, then we had a tough spring. Was that in 14? We've been buying gravel for years, so we've been bullish on gravel, and we're kind of coming off that bubble now. It just can't.
John, I've always wondered, can you use a recycled material? Does that?
You can, and some counties do. We crush the concrete and we use it for backfill. I've had people petition that I'm giving them silica poisoning, which silica
Yes.
doesn't happen in limestone or dolomite, but it would happen in concrete. That's one of your byproducts. So I've never used crushed concrete on a surface just because if it's been an argument already, I don't want to go down that road. So we use it for backfill on pipes and that sort of stuff. It's
Right.
been not on surfacing.
Okay.
We do use recycled asphalt on surfacing occasionally and shoulders.
And what, you said the silica, is that what you said?
Silica, it's
It's become a big
just a
deal
sand,
in the
it's a
last 10
sand
years.
dust is all it is.
Okay.
It's in the dirt too. I don't,
Okay.
I'm not sure I'm a believer in it, but it is a concern, so
Okay.
I'm cautious.
If you're a construction company, you gotta protect against it. If you're a county or a city, you don't have to.
No, we updated all of our concrete cutting
Okay.
to be
good.
compliant with the silica standard, so.
Okay.
Kinda lost where I was. I keep wanting to go to overview and I'm not sure if you guys are in line by line, so.
We're on page 4, I think. aren't
Yeah,
we?
so if you get back to you'll see materials, granular, west side, east side, those are two big ticket items. We're about 1.8 million. That's probably been anywhere between 1.2 and 3 million over the last 5 or 6 years. Typically, if I have money, I put it in the granular. We've just been behind for a decade, it seems like, or better.
That's where most complaints are.
Yes, in the spring, this is the one that bites us the hardest. So we're trying to get those road inventories up so we can get through spring a little better. Sorry, I'll try to go back here. 110s.
Okay, we're on page 4?
Yep,
Yep.
Okay.
top of there. Then you get to dust palliative, we have to put some of that out there on the quarry road and a few other things. We get to seal coat, there's a couple line items I spend out of there. There's seal coat is a base stabilization. I don't see us doing a lot of maintenance in that this year. So there's about $250,000 there, and there's about 500,000 in seal coat, and that's just the surface only, that top 3/8 that we do, just to reseal. So there's about $750,000 there in seal coats, which is down. Last year, I think we talked in this meeting that, you wanted to see more seal coats getting done. Bids came in really well, and I ran pretty hard with that item. So you see I spent 2.1 last year on seal coats, getting the maintenance done that we got done. So we had a huge year in seal coats last year, maintenance wise, not expansion.
Where would you put expansions?
Not front page under construction.
All right.
I'm trying to, I used to make my budget so it was flexible with the DOT, but now I'm gonna make my budget so it's flexible for you guys, and I'll just have to suffer through the DOT, but it's okay. Just need to know what the expectations are. So gonna move everything that you guys wanna do as far as priorities, so that those first 5 lines, just to keep it easy for you guys, I guess.
John, before you go any further on that, you spent 2.1 million on our existing roads and seal coat. You're only budgeting 250. Are you doing anything on any roads this year?
We're not doing the base stabilization. So the base stabilization's the lion's share of the cost. That 3/8 of inch oil and chips we put on is maybe 30,000 a mile, and the rest, where we grind it up and add oil, that's $200,000 a mile. So we can do a lot of the sealing, but if we have to go back and fix deeper issues, that's where the big money is. So we did a lot of the base repair last year, not looking at a lot of base repair this year.
So when you chew it up and grind it, mix it, lasts a lot longer.
Yeah, we'll get 10 or 12 years out of that.
Okay.
So is
The other way, John, how long?
probably 3.
Okay.
Really depends on traffic. I've seen some go as 20, it's kind of crazy. On Perry Road, we hadn't been there for 20 years. And there's really no farm traffic up there.
Okay.
So I think those people were shocked when we were up there last year or the year before. Then I'm down in patching. I've been pretty strong in patching the last couple of years. I'm slowing down on that a little bit. About $250,000 on concrete and $250,000 on asphalt as far as patching goes. The rest are salaries. So we're down. If there's any questions on the 7100s or 7110s there?
Are your overtime, is that mostly snow?
Our overtime, yeah, it's pretty much primarily snow. There was some overtime at the beginning of the budget. My inspectors were matching hours with the contractors, so that's pretty variable. If you look at my budget now, I'm ahead in overtime on the engineering side, now those people won't have any overtime for several months, so that catches up.
Okay.
So on the roads items, compared to last year, I'm spending about 7.6% less than I did the previous year. And that's about 44% of my budget. So that's those items there for the materials on patching, seal coat and rock are nearly half of my budget, or 44% if you want to be precise, I guess.
Okay, we flipping to page 5?
No, I'm on the 7120s. It's about halfway down that page there. We got snow and ice. My budget starts getting easier now, so
All right.
be relieved. Snow and ice, Tina removed the OT from there. It's the way our line items are billed, it's not getting billed there. So we took overtime out of the snow and ice and got redistributed. The problem with my budget is everybody else gets to put all their salaries in one line, and I have to guess where everybody's doing work, so to report to the state. So it really makes it difficult not to over budget on wages. So she just took that out of there, and we're gonna deal with it another way. Snow and ice, we're gonna buy about $25,000 less salt this year, I hope, and miscellaneous materials there, like the pre-mix materials. So snow and ice came down 24%. It bounced up one year. We used too much salt and we had to buy some extra, and it really depends how the winter goes, and I just don't know this time of year. It's a question of, I know in April, but I don't know now. So then that brings us down to the 7130s. Still a little further down on the bottom of that page, we have signs. The big variable there is painting, or pavement markings, I guess is what we call it in there. Every other year, we do edge lines and center lines. Those costs really been shooting up lately. So we did center lines last year, and we're gonna do edge lines this year on that one. So we spent 247,000 on all the lines. If you do center, that used to be, geez, maybe 5 years ago, probably around 160, so that just went crazy on us here lately.
What is it, materials?
Yeah, have a contractor come in and paint the lines. Just,
That's a contracted service, right?
yeah, we don't have the ability to do that, but
We don't have a truck.
I don't want one either. I just want to pay somebody to come paint it. But that's kind of the big item there. The rest of that's just signage and, that crew's time to do that, so. That area in traffic control went up about 14% from our budget. So now we're on 7140s.
Wait a minute. Oh, okay.
Next page,
Page
5.
Next page, yeah, starts with materials, road clearing. So that's kind of what we're doing for contract tree removal and contract spraying is really what that is. So, not really salaries or anything else in there. There could be some materials, but it's, pretty much contractors doing trees that we can't take. And we've been spraying the right of ways, kind of East Township at a time, I guess, trying to beat the cedar trees and some other brush. So we're in the 7140s. That's what I said.
Is there more than one place that you buy equipment then?
For the new equipment?
Yeah.
No, all the new equipment comes out of that line item. So you're in the 7200s. We've been,
How many road graders did we, I thought, I seen like 3 come through.
yeah, we've been up and down. So there's a couple of years there we got tight and we didn't buy new equipment and we got behind. I try to keep them on a 7-year rotation. So we had to buy 4 in 1 year. And those are 7 years old now. So I've been trying to spread these out. So yeah, there's still years we're buying 3, but we're trying to stay at 2 a year on the graders, in between 2 and 3 trucks a year. And that keeps our fleet about the age we want to keep it.
So you're gonna buy a couple more here?
We got 2 graders that just came in, so it might been in the last set of claims or be in next week's
Okay.
claims. Then,
Okay.
yeah, next year it'll be 2 more graders and 2 more trucks.
Do we trade?
Yeah.
John, you're moving that down $500,000. Is that gonna put you in a bind in a couple of years?
I think
3 years?
we're gonna stay on pace. Where it's gonna put me in the bind is the loaders and the excavators that, I might buy one of those every 10 years or longer. We'll have to time that, but we're not really due one of those quite yet, so.
How are we on trucks?
We've had a rough time with trucks, for sure. We got one brand that's been kind of a lemon, and it's almost out of our fleet, and I think that'll help. But the new emissions didn't help us when all that happened as well, so, the later generations have been a lot better, but they're still difficult and expensive, but, we're getting them.
How many will you buy this year?
We bought, I wish Tina was here, it's either 2 or 3. I'm confused between last year and this year, I guess, but
And next year?
we'll be 2 and 3 forever, just to
Okay.
keep
Okay.
the fleet updated. We try to alternate every other year though. So that gets us through new equipment. It's about 5%.
John, stop there just for a second.
Okay.
In your 2021 budget, you budgeted 1.5 million. What were you planning to buy with that 1.5? I am on line,
Like the 3rd line down.
yep,
On the 2021 budget?
Yep.
We have trucks and graders in there.
I know, how many trucks, how many graders?
I believe it's 2 trucks and 2 graders.
Okay, what did you budget for this year?
Well, that must've been 3 trucks, but $1 million.
I know, what does that buy you?
Gonna be 2 trucks, 2 graders, and nothing else. So there's like a patch trailer and some other incidentals in there.
Okay, I just don't want you to get caught with, something that's so old that.
Right, we're just coming out of that. I don't wanna get caught in that either.
Okay,
We've-
that's my only concern.
We've dug
Okay.
out for about the last 4 years on that one. So yes, I've suffered through that. I don't wanna get back there. Like Tina and Tyler and Sean, there's a lot of people working on our fleet stuff, and that's gonna be something big for us now. We have our fleet down to what we know the operational costs and expenses are and all that other stuff in our vehicles. It's all tracked by computer, and we never had that before, and, I think our fleet's really coming along great because of it, but, there's almost $14 million worth of assets sitting there in our fleet.
Okay, so.
Definitely needs
back to
managed.
Tim's question, why a $500,000 down
Just making room in the budget, I guess, to,
for other things?
yep,
Silco Road.
seal cover roads.
Well, there you go, he got me there. I just worry that,
What's the 50,000 in furniture?
For the new office there, that's for new facilities, I guess, whatever doesn't move, and that would partially be some of the, mechanics equipment too, I guess, but,
Can that come out of gaming? That's a one-time expense, isn't it, John?
yeah.
Okay.
We're planning on moving all of our furniture other than like the common stuff, so the office furniture, I think we'll have to go with us. I don't know about file cabinets and that sort of stuff. So we're on to 7110s by my scorecard here. It's about 4 lines down. We get into pretty much what we're spending on maintaining this fleet. Our mechanics, equipment, parts, fuel, all those things are in there.
is that the 340?
Yeah, starting there. If you come down a little ways, you'll see materials, gasoline and diesel. Kept that high for several years because we really got burned on it for a couple of years. Kind of bringing that down. Our billing for our fuel actually had our propane and everything else mixed in it, and Tina kind of pulled that out and we put that back into facility costs because it should have been as a utility cost, not a fuel cost. So that's kind of why those items came down. We cleaned up the billing there, and our fuel costs have been low, which hopefully they continue to be low.
John, let's go back up to this minor motor vehicle. Is that the pickups and stuff?
Yeah, it's everything in the fleet. If they need an oil filter, well, I guess there's probably a line item for filters, but whatever parts they need, all comes out of there.
What's our rotation on pickups?
We typically drive those till the value to fix them is less than what they're worth, because we really haven't done real well selling that stuff. And it seems like we can wear them out and they're still worth a couple thousand, so we wear them out.
Okay.
So we're down there, we're about 2.5% lower this year on the equipment repair services. Down to tools, so we're completely out of the salary line items, just in all the tools. Some of those went up, and that's to equip those mechanics in the new facilities on tools, and some of the welding materials we need, so. About 74,000 in there total.
How come tubes and tires are so high?
Just a motor grader tire is like $6,200 for a tire. It's insane on the larger equipment, so.
Are we overestimating in the budget for fluff?
Well, no, I'd like to think not, but,
Okay.
Hey, John, if you go down a few more lines to materials and it says tire chains, how did we go from 7,500 to 75,000? And we've spent nothing this year. We re-estimated the budget to 25, but we're still budgeting 75.
that a decimal point mistake, I hope?
That might have been a decimal point mistake there. You guys make me do this before the winter gets here. So if we have a winter we use chains, then you'll see those numbers jump up. If you don't, then you won't. But yeah, 7,500 is probably plenty there. I can make that adjustment.
That's, 1, 2, that's 3, 4, about 3 cents on the levy.
Almost 4.
Yeah.
Hey, I just got one quick question and whatever, but, so back to, the data processing hardware, is that gonna allow all the employees on the roadside to, clock in and clock out?
So we're looking to do a kiosk now. So we're really been working on communication for several years, and it's almost impossible with everybody being remote. But we're gonna go to a kiosk. They can clock in or out. They can do it on the phone now, but I think we want to be able to give it on a kiosk. Then there's bulletin boards we need to maintain. We're gonna try to do that digitally through that kiosk, and that would also house our fuel system software in there. So there's several uses for that, but it really is to help
So,
improve employee communication.
Does that tie directly into our system here, either Tyler's CMS or the Cronus?
I think we'll be able to do the punch in, punch out on Cronus, I understand it. The data, I guess, is to be shared coming out of Tyler, and I think that's being worked on or in process. I don't know the status of that project, but we want to be able to process like leave requests and that sort of stuff electronically.
Okay.
John, materials, utilities, and it looks like it's gonna say insurance. You're budgeting 225. I'm about 2/3 down on page 5.
Right.
What is that?
That's back to our fuel or gas or water, all those things wrapped up into that one. So
Buildings,
what?
would that be under buildings?
Materials, utilities, and insurance.
No, I don't.
No, he's just saying like, is that facilities type things that you're talking about?
Yeah, it should be.
So there's a pretty big, like, I don't call it discrepancy, but I mean, just, you haven't even come close to that 225 number in the years that we're seeing here, so.
Right, we also moved I think that's the line item, we moved the heating LP to as well, so I don't know if we have that item. Kind of the problem with my item is it's everything, a lot of what I do is seasonal, I guess, so.
You reduced the other ones and moved them into this one, is what you're saying for next year?
Well, I reduced the other one, but I think it will be picked up by that one. I didn't increase that one, I think that line item's gonna pick that up.
Okay, cause I mean, that's.
225 and you
Almost
never come close.
$100,000, so we're just wondering.
113.9, clear back in 1819.
And that's fine, I mean, if you think by moving all those into that new line item, that's gonna go there, that's totally fine, over the years, you haven't done that, so there's been almost 100,000 there
Right, over.
that you haven't ever spent.
I put that in seal.
It's like a mile of gravel, isn't it?
More than that, yeah.
I mean, we're gonna have more roads to pave this year.
We're gonna have budget amendments.
We're doing away with gravel.
We're gonna have budget amendments monthly, so we can move money back where I need it. That's all.
The increase in your shop tools there, John, is that to, supply, Hancock shop?
That'll be in our, not a lot of that's gonna go to Hancock. Most of that's gonna be for the administrative building and the maintenance shop.
Well, you moved it up 15,000 and you haven't even come close to the 15,000. I mean, you moved it from 15 to 30, you've never come close to the 15.
So are these one-time costs as well?
Yeah, on the move that way, yeah.
That might be another gaming possibility, Tim, that you were kind of hinting at earlier.
Okay.
So are we done with the 7,200s there, 7,210? So we're in the 7,220s. Oh, those are the tools, I guess. We got through that, I believe. That's like stock and inventory. We've really reduced what we keep in inventory because we can get it from vendors pretty quick, so.
Materials, welding, gas, and rods went from 15 to 30, and you've never been close to 15. Why such a change there?
We're gonna add a fabrication shop to the maintenance facilities when we get them built, so we're gonna tool that.
Okay, that was a good answer.
And then you reduce.
All the other ones are bad, okay.
And then you'll be reducing.
Now we know where I stand.
Repair costs too, right?
Yeah.
Should have it now.
Are you still only building one building?
I'm planning administrative in a maintenance building. Yeah, so yeah, Hancock's underway, I guess. We should have the building should be delivered this week, I think, then still working on another facility.
Okay.
Now we're down to real estate. Are we on the same page? Real estate, facilities, new additions, all that good stuff?
Where are we at? Page 6 or 5 or 6?
Page 6.
6.
The
See the real estate.
200,000, we found it.
But we found $500,000 here. But you know, the thing about it is, it only comes out of rural.
No, I know.
So we get into real estate.
I'm worried about the $500,000 reinvestment.
So you're talking about,
Trucks,
me too. I'm scared, it bothers me a little bit.
We need them guys with sharp equipment.
We didn't bond for any of his, did we? Nothing, right?
No, we haven't funded anything for roads.
Yeah, I'm just.
We should, because it's an ongoing maintenance.
You know, we can't, I don't think we bond for ongoing maintenance. I think if you wanna buy a truck or two every now and then, I mean, I don't think that's a bad idea.
If you wanna have that discussion one of these times, we can probably get Black Hawk County
Yeah,
on the line, and they did it for,
they did it for bridges.
well, but mostly for the seal coating and a lot of that stuff. And you've had those discussions with those people, so.
There's a way to do it, it's just, you gotta.
I think they still have to go through the election though. I don't know how you get past that, or
No.
did they do it against windmills? I don't remember their story, I
No,
guess.
they
but-
did,
They just had that.
for they had the referendum on their local option sales tax.
Oh, okay.
Gave a lot of that money, but those bonds are paid off with their local option sales tax
The good
dollars,
thing
I think.
about it, Brian, is that we had it, when we asked Becky earlier, the, rural fund went up about $335,000.
Last year.
That's what we have in new money for this
New
year.
value.
Okay.
John went from a $5.1 million request to a 5.3. The funds are there to keep his budget the same.
But he also got the $500,000 out of equipment.
Right.
That concerns me.
So then I'm on facilities in the bottom of page 6. We had 3.6, that was pay for Hancock, that got
Where you at, John?
bottom of page 6.
Okay, I am on the back of page 8.
Oh, well, you're done already.
It will be, because there'll be food coming in here in a minute.
Bottom of page 6, that 3.6 in there, that got handled by a bond for Hancock. I got 350 in there, I still need salt storage and fuel at Hancock. So that was to help pay for that.
So it looked like in your budget, there were a couple items that need to be cleaned up, you know, fix that decimal point on your, the one we talked about with, tires and chains.
Do I do that and just resubmit then to Becky, or?
We can help you with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got it marked.
We're gonna come back, we'll come back and talk to you, but what I would like to ask that we do as a board is, and John, I don't know how much time you need to put this together, but, hopefully sooner than later. It'd be nice to see if you can put that map together that you built before. And you might have done that, you know where I remember seeing this is when we went out to Walnut and we did one of our board meetings out in Walnut. Remember we were kind of starting to try to do them around the county? And then you had a map and you put on there with color of the road that you were gonna redo, and I can't remember which one that was out there, but if you could do the same thing with your seal coat plan and bring that back to us, so we can have a seal coat discussion. And then maybe even your 5-year plan, look at that as well, because I think if we can get this board to be on the same priority list, and then we probably need to have Matt Wyatt included in that conversation, it would help us really understand where we need to be with what you're trying to spend. And it may not alter your budget at all, it might just kind of shift things around in order of priority, but, I mean, I didn't see anything too crazy in here. I mean, the $500,000 less for your fleet, I guess I just want,
That concerns me, John.
is that just a function of the fact that now you've got everything to be new? Cause you've, how many things do you have at year 7 right now? Is it just 1 or 2 or something like that?
I think we're down to the 2 graders. We always have 2 that are aging out, I guess.
Because the next year, you're probably gonna be putting that $500,000 back on, right?
I hope not. I think we have that under control, but yeah, I'll check on that and
What about, I go back to pickups.
double check.
Do you got,
Smaller equipment,
you have a handle on that too? I mean, do you know?
Tina does. I mean, she can run reports on it, tell me the age of everything. I don't have it.
I'd like to see
Oh,
a
yeah.
little more money in there for some.
Yeah, maybe I should've got more information from
I
her.
just am big on switching equipment out because it wears. And I'd rather have us doing production rather than repairs.
So
It's the way it works in my company, so.
So a lot of the budget we just did, right, we went over and you guys saw the reductions. Well, at the end of this year, my ending fund balance would be about $4 million. With everything I budgeted, my ending fund balance next year would be 2.2. So there's about $1.8 million reduction in deficit spending there, as proposed with those
Yeah,
changes.
then we gotta figure out, are we in our minds accounting for your money? I don't wanna call it your money, but to be clear, taxpayer money, but,
Your department.
when we look at our fund balance and we think we have X fund balance, we have to make sure we're not considering it the same way you are, because if you're considering that your pot of money and we think we have that too, we gotta just be careful there.
Yeah, I've always just kind of managed the fund balance. I don't know what you guys see, but I've always tried to manage my fund balance to be around that 2.5 million. So that 2.2 is kind of concerning for me.
Put a little more in for pickups and stuff.
It's a little low, I think, but
I would like to see that.
Well, we'll come, I guess if we can get you back to talk seal coat program,
sure.
and then your 5-year plan, and then we'll have Matt Wyatt be there as well.
Priorities, you mean, Justin?
Yeah.
5-year plan is, usually state federal funds.
Oh, I guess, I wanna know what your seal coat plan is, what I really care about. But I want that to be nested with what Matt Wyatt and his department is trying to do too. If we can do that, then we can tie our economic development stuff we wanna do, and everybody wins.
Do we take a break here?
Yeah.
John, my last concern is, you talked about spending down your cash balance. None of those expenditures are for, operating expenses, are they? I'm talking about salaries, rock, that we have to buy anyway.
Right, so,
Because if you're using that cash reserve, to spend those funds on that, they're an ongoing expense. How are you gonna come up with the money you're spending out of the cash reserve next year?
right, so that's where I'm kind of stuck with the struggle with your guys and the priorities. I mean, there's stuff that we gotta take care of, or we're all gonna be in trouble, sort of stuff. Then there's extra we're doing, but we may, I kind of ride the tide, I guess, as far as funds. We'll have a bigger year in seal coats when the funds allow us to, and we'll have a smaller year when we don't. And new equipment comes down when we're tight. And, if we drop local construction, we have an even budget, but that's 1.7. So if you want to do that work, we're kind of in a downward spiral, then we have to, hold our guns for a little bit, then reload. So when you're talking about seal coat program, besides $750,000 a year, finding money beyond that's going into the red in my budget.
Believe it or not, it makes sense.
It's,
We watch it with John too, and that's where he does, because the money does go into that pot, that secondary roads, and it's there. When his projects are let, when this can be done or not done, his fiscals don't always his projects don't fit into the slots for fiscals. So we help him, we just kind of sit in the background and then just poke him every once in a while if we see something that doesn't look normal for what he normally does and his budgets work. So he does have a lot more difficult,
It's
he
pretty
just doesn't have an
volatile,
annual
yes.
operations budget.
It's volatile, I mean, month to
Hard
month.
to stay on a fiscal,
Do what?
hard to stay on the same fiscal budget.
Yeah.
With your project.
Expenses for his projects don't always adhere to what we set. So when he has that revolving balance, or, you know, he can transfer this year and he doesn't transfer, next year, depending on what the projects are done. So I'm just sorry, I'm chiming in just to, I guess, help.
It's strange, it's
It,
not what
it
you're saying.
isn't like the rest of the departments, and he has a really good grasp on it,
Yeah, I
so.
know, it's difficult to hear your department heads say, my budget's going down in this area and that area. But by golly, I spent 5.1 million last year and I want 5.3 this year. You're not spending what you spent last year, but you want more money. Doesn't make a lot of sense to me. We'll figure it out.
Right, it really comes down to
Just
the
the
local construction. If you want the local construction, then we either need the tax increase or we're deficit spending. If we just do the maintenance, then we're fine, I guess. It really is what you want out of this department beyond maintenance. I guess that's where it gets tough for us. I'm good, I probably took too much time anyway.
Okay, well, we're probably gonna see if you can get back on the agenda for next Tuesday, if at all possible.
Okay.
Because we wanna try to keep this moving along, and yours is one of the bigger pieces of the puzzle, but thanks,
Telling you,
John,
done good.
you know,
All right, thank you.
okay.
Would you prefer to give your budget the way you did last year in a PowerPoint or this way?
I prefer the PowerPoint because
Yeah,
I don't
you
think
would.
you guys, I think it's hard for you to understand the volatility and the timing. I mean, I have projects that are 20 years old and I still can't get them to move, and it's not on me, it's all these other people and entities I have to deal with, so. Some things move and some things don't, and kinda need the flexibility to move money.
It's a little bit, at some point, I don't know if it's our choice or we allow you to make the choice. At some point, if it doesn't look like it's gonna move, it's gonna take another year, we need to reprioritize and figure out,
That's kind of what I was trying to do this year, is if we get everything boxed in those first 5 lines of construction, that's construction. Whether it's seal coats, a 245th bridge, a lime kiln realignment, it's all construction. So if we get that money moved there, I think that really gives you guys the flexibility to set those priorities and make those changes.
right, but if for whatever reason, an opportunity pops up and whatever railroad or cable company X, Y, and Z's call you and say, we got $1 million, or we got this, then we need to be able to readjust and say, well, here's an opportunity, we may not get to see this opportunity again because we got the right contacts and got everybody at the table, but, and then you gotta let us know and say, here's what we're gonna do, we're postponing these for 1 more year or whatever, and move and get this thing knocked out and get down the road. I mean, we're gonna always have people, no matter what we do, we're gonna have people that aren't gonna be, I guess, thrilled with what our decision is, so.
Okay.
You gotta make one.
Thank you,
Yeah,
John.
thanks, John. So what's our move here?
I think we take a break.
We're gonna take a break until,
Half hour?
Yeah, I'd say half hour, come back, we'll just,
Don't you wish you would have been here earlier, Bob?
pardon?
Do we to let the sheriff, jail, everybody's been outside since about 10:45, do we let them know we're breaking for 30?
yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah, and then can we kill the YouTube and then,
did we talk
Do we
to,
need,
Melvin will.
You want to, yeah, but that has to be, if you kill that, then you have to set
To
up
create
another
a new
meeting.
one.
do we have to make motion?
Oh, then just kill
No.
both, and then start up a new one.
Well, I don't know how to start up a new one. Andrew does. I assume Andrew, well, he did this one this morning. He'll have to start up another
It's
meeting.
not a big deal, we can get it.
Okay.
No,
And
no.
Melvin, just shut yours off too, and then what we'll
The
do is.
chairman can, recess the meeting for half an hour. You don't need a motion.
Recess the meeting for about 30 minutes. And then, did we get a hold of Jason Slack, do we know?
Okay.